pick up people, have a look at, and update you if we get visual.
It's never over. What we saw just in the last week, you know, the movement of those two lionesses, it's like new discoveries. We didn't know they did that.
For the past week, we've spent in the Hwaneb River system, where we have been following the respective prides of the Hwaneb River system. First, we started with the main pride of the Hwaneb, which is staying more to the east of the river, where we had a male, two lionesses, and then two cubs, where we got to spend about 4 days with them, where we've picked up incredible information about their behavior, you know, how inquisitive some of the young ones were to come over to the vehicle and all that, getting to really know and understand how they really do behave as well. The idea was for us to get to collar one of the females, so that we can replace the collars with a GPS satellite early warning system collars. And then on the fourth night, we got together with Dr. Flepstander, and then we set out bait, and then we waited there for the lions to come closer so that we can get to dart one of them. But it so happened that it was a bit of a mission that specific night that we were out there, that even Dr. Flepstander said that it's not a normal occurrence for him or normal experience for him, since he's been spending for the past 20 plus years in this area working with the desert adapted lions. But an interesting thing played out that night, whereby the male first came through and he got half of the bait, and then he went off and he was busy feeding, and then left the little half for the lionesses, and then they came through. They tried to share a little bit of that, but it so happened that something went down there, that the two of them got down at each other, a very vicious fight they had. And then from there they moved on. And an interesting behavior that we also picked up earlier on in the day before the setting up the bait and all that was that we were tracking that pride of the Hwaneb, and we got into a valley where we got hold of them. But once we got sight of them, they started to run off. So it was a thing that was pretty much what Dr. Flep was talking about, is that whenever they are within the main river system, closer to the camps, they are a lot more relaxed, and they associate themselves with the safety that comes from around there as well. But the moment they move away from there, they start to, you know, get flashbacks of the previous experiences that they've been going through within the area, where they are a year and a half old cubs were also shot at a time whereby the farmers were facing also difficulties, and they pushed their cows into the river system, and then they were sharing the same food source or same river system ecosystem with the lions as well, because lions do not know that the cow belongs to somebody else, but it just sees it as a wild animal as well. So that's how they went for them, and then that's how the cubs were lost the previous litter as well. So from there, we basically, under the instruction of Dr. Flip, we somehow called off that baiting and trying to dart and recollar the lioness, and we just let them go off into the mountains so that we don't really aggravate any other behavior from them. So from there, we focused our attention on the floodplains pride.
When life gets busy, you can always rely on Gold TV to make things a little easier. Upgrade to the next package and we'll boost you to a higher package for free. Gold TV. Love it.
The orphans, the 3 orphans from XPL 55, which one of them called Charlie, was staying with XPL 69, which is her aunt. So her aunt passed away a couple of months ago, but since then Charlie has been looking around for her aunt, trying to reconnect, because that's the only lioness with whom she had a good contact or communication or coalition that she has formed over the time that she's been moving around here, and they were very successful in them being two of the floodplains pride, because the floodplains pride had to break into 2 parts as well, whereas Alpha and Bravo, the 2 sisters of Charlie, had moved off towards the dune fields, and into the dune fields they started to hunt on cormorants by the Oasis Springs, and then from the Oasis Springs they ventured westwards, and then they made contact with the ocean, and then that's where they were preying on the seals, more cormorants and some beached whales and so on. That's what they were, marine diet that they were basically having. So they've really found an alternative food source at the coastline, which deters them from any human-wildlife conflict as well, same as for Charlie herself as well. But now currently we spent 2-3 days with Alpha and Bravo, but we also tried to look for Charlie as well. We've covered more extensive scanning, tracking and all that we've done in the area, but we couldn't find any tracks of Charlie herself. So after the sighting, the last sighting that we had for the day for Alpha and Bravo, they decided they're moving off into the gravel plains to the south. And yesterday morning we picked up tracks heading in that direction, and so we thought that maybe Charlie could have called what is maybe in that area, and then she tried to communicate with the 2 of them so that they can reconnect and then re-establish their coalition that they've got as well. But unfortunately Charlie didn't make contact with them, and we just came had a sighting of Alpha and Bravo, which was an incredible sighting in a setup, or should I say in a scene in which you don't normally see desert adapted lions as well. So it was pretty much awesome to have them out there, to really get to experience the diverse sceneries within which they are also moving around as well. It's been 2 weeks of visiting different areas where an ordinary Namibian doesn't have the opportunity to see, but sort of getting the insight of how you do your job and the areas that you cover, the distances that you cover, the terrain in which you go through as well, the challenges that you face. Like yesterday morning, we had to come and rescue you after getting stuck and so on. And these are the insights that we get from you, and it's indeed a humbling experience for all of us to really get to meet you and get to work with you, and then and discover more parts about Namibia as well.
Yeah, Alpha, I think in the end, I think it's an absolute privilege to be able to live here and work here. I mean, it comes with some sacrifices and compromises, but I do see it as an absolute privilege. I think back of when I started as a very young, inexperienced person working in Etosha, at age of 18 or 19. And I remember being involved and working with all the old experienced rangers of that time, the likes of Chris Eyre and Garth Owen Smith. And I mean, there were many really sort of significant individuals, Rudy Lutti, people that really sort of taught us the basics of the ecosystems and the wildlife in the area. And I still remember so clearly being given a job to work on the lions and the spotted hyenas and the carnivores. And I took that quite seriously at that time. And I'm still trying to find the answers to the questions that we had in the early 80s. And that, I think, where it comes down to the importance of a long term, the investment. The investment that one makes really only pays off in years to come. So I feel like I'm at the moment, I'm probably the only one of that group of people left, but I'm still trying to do the job that they asked me to do 30 years ago. So yeah, it is a privilege to be, but you know, the importance of that long-term investment, and for us to understand the system and to try and manage it, you know, we really need to put in the hard yards, and I think that's sort of what we are still trying to do. So yeah, no, it's been a privilege to be here.
Indeed, indeed, and a privilege for me to get to meet you and work with you as well.
Yeah, look, Alpha, I mean, we've worked together some years now, and again, that to me is an example of that investment. You know, you worked here as a tour guide. You saw, you know, the orphans, probably the first person to see them. And now you're still here, and they've grown, and I mean, so we build on our knowledge, and we build on our perception and understanding. Yeah, I do hope that what we've learned, that we can show the world, and the support for the area. I think it's been a brilliant, very nice time, and it's a privilege to be part of that. Thank you.
Although we haven't managed to get hold of Charlie herself, but it doesn't stop here. The search for Charlie still continues. As once we are out of here, Dr. Flip will still continue the remarkable work that he's doing, together with all the other partners that he's got, and then we will try to get hold of Charlie and then put a GPS satellite early warning system collar on her, so that we can at least monitor her movement and understand where and why and how she's busy moving around as well.
DJ is too busy. We are giving you all things, everything. Our DJ is on the decks. Join me, Shayulenga, for all this and more on The Tribe, exclusive to One Africa TV.
We're joined by Dr. Flip Stander. The very first sort of a couple of questions that I've got, but the first one is like, what are the desert lions and what is the differentiation, and why are they in the desert? If we could just walk us through that part.
Yeah, Alpha, look, the desert adapted lions in Namibia are unique for the species. They live in a habitat and exert behavior that is not seen, you know, in lion populations elsewhere. Now, the Namib Desert is a really important ecological system. It's the oldest desert, and it stretches about 100 kilometers inland from the sea all along Namibia's coast. And it's a really unique place, you know, incredible species that have evolved here, plants and animals. And the lions that occupy the area are very important to Namibia currently. It's the only place in the world where lions live in such extreme desert environment, and that they also go onto the coastline. It's the only place where you can see free-roaming wild lions on a beach. Now, it's unique because the coastlines throughout the world have been occupied by people, you know, through the millennia. It's a productive area. And as a result, wildlife has essentially disappeared from most of the coastal areas as a result of human occupation for millions of years. The reason why the Namibian desert adapted lions are unique is because the Namib Desert essentially occupied that area. So people have not lived there. And as a result, we get a lot of natural recurring wild species that occupy those areas. Now, we do believe that lions used to occur throughout the Namibian coast, the Namib Desert. But people have settled in the areas, and their numbers have been reduced. As early as the 1930s, there are records of lions occurring through that area. They only really became known to us in the late 70s, when the Skeleton Coast Park was basically established, and the rangers working in that area picked up that there were lions, lions on the beach, and it was an incredible sort of discovery. Those lions very soon disappeared. I started a small study on them in the 80s with the Ministry of Environment, but very soon after we'd marked about 5 animals, they were all killed by people that lived almost in the Skeleton Coast Park area, farming with livestock. These are people that had very few head of livestock, few goats and a few donkeys and cattle, and when the lions attacked their livestock, they defended their livelihood, which they could do legally, but as a result they killed the lions. So by the end of the 1980s, we thought that the desert adapted lions had all gone extinct. But that was not to be. A small pocket of them had survived in a very mountainous area just south of Sesfontein. And then a few big changes happened politically and also from an environmental point of view. Namibia gained its independence. And suddenly the local communities in the area were given rights to utilize the land. The forming of conservancies was very important. And at the same time, we had really good rainfall, a number of years of really good rainfall. So the wildlife numbers were allowed to increase. At the same time, tourism started happening. The political environment was ready for that now. So it's a culmination of all those factors that came together that essentially allowed the natural wildlife of the northern Namib, the Damaraland area as we know it, to proliferate, supported by tourism and communal conservancies. So the combination of all of that was that favorable conditions. I was very lucky to have started this lion project in that time. And we essentially were able to document the lion population having been reduced to about 20 individuals to basically grow and expand from that relatively small nucleus to a population size of an estimated 130 to 150 today. They've expanded from that small nucleus area south of Sesfontein to occupy an area of way over 50,000 square kilometers, going south of the Oegap River to as far as the Warrisip River. So that expansion was essentially allowed because there was suitable or sufficient wildlife, but tourism played an enormous role. It did not, however, reduce the conflict between people and lions over livestock. That is still today our biggest conservation problem, and it is also the biggest limiting factor of the lion population. So we are still very much battling and searching for ways to live with the lions. And that, as I say, remains to be one of the biggest problems today.
Welcome to this edition of the Business Brief. One of the news stories in the brief stated that the Bank of Namibia forecasts that the domestic economy is expected to grow by 2.7%.
Economically, the mining sector is a beacon of hope for the Namibian economy.
We'll be discussing the Data Protection Bill and how you can protect your personal information.
This bill, basically the Data Protection Bill, before it becomes a law, will be basically responsible for protecting your personal information.
If I can go a little bit into detail with the Desert Lion project itself, what is the Desert Lion project and why has it been done?
Okay. Well, look, the Desert Lion project started in the mid-80s when I was a young ranger in Etosha, and I went to the Skeleton Coast Park to do some work there, and I saw a lioness on the beach. That was 1982, and I mean the impact of that sighting has never left me. I mean, it's just such an incredible thing to see, and it was a dream really to be able to work on those lions. And at that time I started a small project. We call it, I think, 5 lions, but those are the lions that then all were killed during conflict incidents. And when the population recovered, and that was sort of 1997, that's when I started this project. And because it was like a dream for so many years, and I just felt that these lions are just so unique in the area that they live. The behavior that they exhibit, the areas that they live in, is just so fascinating. So it's been a lifelong sort of passion. Initially, I wanted to be able just to understand the basics. I still don't understand the basics. It takes so long. It's such a complex problem in such a difficult area that it essentially became almost like a lifelong study. And I don't really see it ever, we ever stopping the work. Yeah, I would foresee even after, my time with them is over, I would imagine that it would continue. The value of lions to Namibia and the tourism industry is so important that I would think it will continue. And also the conflict situation is serious. So I think we are laying platforms now, and we've put systems in place and structures that really can continue after all of us are gone. And I think the government, the Namibian government, the Ministry of Environment does see it that way as well, and I think most of the tourism industries too. So I do think we are paving the way for a continuation of work on lions that will carry on for many decades.
Okay. And also, just to understand a little bit more, is like how is this the research different to other researches that has been done about lions in other areas, and what is the profound information that has been insight that has been gathered?
Yeah. Look, in a way, this project is no different to lion projects and studies elsewhere. No different in the sense of the fundamentals of the scientific approach and the methodology, and all of that's much the same. What's different here is that it takes a much bigger effort and much longer to gather even the smallest bit of information. So it just requires this enormous effort, and it takes just so much longer. The information that does come out, however, does contribute quite significantly to our understanding of lions, because it's looking at lion behavior and lion ecology in an extreme environment. And it's often been said to understand a species well enough, you have to understand the extremities. So studying lions or any species in like, say, their normal habitat. So with lions, that would say in savanna habitat, Serengeti, or any of those sort of well-known places, you can get a grasp, a good understanding. But it's only when you know these extremes. The extreme desert, the extreme sort of rainforest, wooded areas, marshes, that type of extreme habitats, what the animals have to do to be able to survive there. And I think that provides us, it contributes to the broader understanding of how the species survives, because it is so extreme. I think one of the most important things that has come out of this particular project is the need and the value of long-term studies. You know, the investment that's made, you know, like for example with the lions, once you get to know a lion, you mark a lion with a collar, you follow that lion throughout its whole life. And with females, when they give birth, you monitor the youngsters and you build a family tree, and you basically continue with a long-term study. And that's really the only way we will get to the bottom and grasp a understanding of lions living in such a complex environment. You know, quite honestly, if I had to think back 10 years ago, I stood up at international wildlife conferences and spoke about the lions with great authority. If I look back at the things I said and what I thought I knew, I'm a little bit embarrassed. You know, because I've discovered such amazing things subsequently that I had no idea of then. So I think it's a humbling experience that we never know what they're doing. We can only know more. And therefore it is so important to continue with systematic data collection, you know, really good sound science, because that's our foundation of understanding the lions, understanding enough to implement effective conservation strategies, like dealing with human-wildlife conflict, and the things that we have been able to put in place is only really possible because of the years and years of collecting, you know, that information and getting that basic understanding.
This DJ is too busy. We are giving you all things, everything. Our DJ is on the decks. Join me, Sheulenga, for all this and more on The Tribe, exclusive to One Africa TV.